Hi, I'm Kimberly Caccavo, and welcome to the Face Your Grace podcast.
And I'm Kate Nowlan, and today we are joined by Nichole MacDonald, a dear friend and someone that I've had the privilege of working with. She is the owner and CEO of Sash Bag. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm happy to be here.
So glad to have you. And we're going to just start with some really fun, simple questions just to get us all loosened up a little bit.
Sounds good.
All right. So what is your greatest strength?
I would say my greatest strength is my ability to accept ideas and use my intuition to execute them.
I love that.
Nice.
We talk a lot
We
about
love intuition.
Yes, we do. Yes, we
Gotta
do.
trust it.
Yeah.
Biggest accomplishment?
My biggest accomplishment would be breaking generational patterns. So I come from a long line of, let's just say, poor people. And my
Nice.
kids are having a different experience. So I've set up something for myself and my children that was very different
Great.
from what my parents had and their parents had and their parents had. So that is the thing I'm the most proud of.
Oh,
As you
absolutely.
should be.
Yeah.
As you should
Thank
be.
you.
I love hearing that. All right. So one thing no one knows about you, but you are finally confident to share it.
As you know, Kate, and you will learn probably in the next 15 minutes, I am very much an open book. So I'm all about sharing the good, the bad, the ugly, the fun, especially when it comes to my business, my personal life. I'm very open about it publicly. One thing that I probably don't share as much publicly, just with personal friends, is more my personal dating life, my romantic life. I think people often assume that I'm married or have an ex-husband because I have 2 kids, but actually, you know, I've been a single mom this whole time.
For you.
And I've just been doing my own thing. And yeah, the thing I probably don't talk about as much is the fact that I'm single.
Yep.
And I've been for a long time.
Yep.
Great
And
role
Yeah.
model for your kids, though.
Such
Yeah,
a
thank
wonderful
you.
role model. Yeah. All right. So now we get to get into the questions about entrepreneurship. So what led you to be an entrepreneur?
I mentioned, my greatest strength of, tapping into ideas and using my intuition. So that was something that I did a lot for other people. And I got to the point where it just didn't feel as rewarding, to keep coming up with ideas that I knew were good. So that the CEO of that company could buy themselves another boat. I was like,
Right.
I'm going to do this for myself.
You want to buy the
Good
boat?
for you.
Yeah. I want the boat.
Right. Nice.
Yeah.
And what led you to this idea?
So I'll give you a little progression here. So
Yeah.
my background before I became an entrepreneur, I also worked in consumer product design and manufacturing marketing. Basically any step from an idea when it plops in your head to getting it onto a shelf. So I had done that for many years, and I had an idea binder that I was just always, putting down my own ideas in, kind of tinkering with them and researching. And then I came up with an idea that wasn't this. It was a different handbag company, because I'm a person who is very disorganized. Like, I just don't know how to be organized. Like, I need help. And I always found that having a purse was just such a problem for me. I nicknamed my purse the point of no return, because that's how it felt. Especially once you start having kids, you're like, how did this dinosaur get in here? So I came up with an idea for a more organized handbag. And that was actually my first company. I launched it in 2008. And that company was not a success. So that was my learn what not to do and be humble business, because I left my job being like, oh, I'm just going to go make my own company. And then years later, I ran into the CEO at a Padres game, and I was like, I'm really sorry for being such a pain in your butt, because I realized, it's a lot harder than people think to go out and start your own thing, especially in manufacturing. So that business did not work out. And I thought, I'm just going to do freelance work and go back to helping other people with their companies. But at least now I'm a freelance contractor. So it's a little different because I was so wounded after that business failed. But then this idea, literally, like I said, I don't know if you've read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, but she has this theory that ideas are their own individual entities. And they basically float around looking for a host. And then they flop into
host.
I'm like, I'm just an idea host, right? Like things
that.
just like come to me and I don't know how or why. And sometimes
Right.
people don't even believe me. I'm like, literally the idea just flashed in my head.
Right.
So I was at Legoland with my son and I was doing the typical mom frustration, like, where's all my stuff moment. And it just literally like, I just saw it in my head. And the next day I got together with a friend of mine who's a much better seamstress than I am because I can like sew a pillowcase and that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to Yardage Town and got fabric and just had a craft day. And I made one for myself and I wore it out that night with some girlfriends. We went out dancing. And so we're dancing and everyone else has their purse, right? So the purse is like over in the corner, it's on their shoulder. And I had this bag that I had made and I was like, woo, you know? And I had 3 strangers come up to me and be like, where did you get that bag? So I was like, I think I'm onto something here. But I was so terrified to start another business. So I took it real slow. It took me a couple of years from that point to actually launch the company.
Do you think that the failure of your first purse company led to the design of this purse? Because this looks pretty organized.
It is. And it did in a way because when I started the first company, it was called Bagonia. And it was still a handbag. So handbags are essentially like buckets, right? Like malleable buckets. You just like throw crap in them. But what I wanted was something that's more organized. So it was still a bucket, but it had an organized interior that zipped in and out. So you could actually take it out too and like wash it and get all the graham cracker crumbs out of the bottom and then zip it back in. But it still was cumbersome and like your body was lopsided. And so it was through that process of thinking that I was designing a better way that I realized like, I don't need a better purse. I need a not a purse. I need something that's not a purse at all. So that taught me that I had to totally reimagine what I was trying to design for myself.
Nice.
And so, I mean, I've had the pleasure of working with you, so very familiar with the product, which, by the way, for those of you that are watching this episode, you can see a Sash Bag in the live here that she's
cute
wearing.
Sunglasses.
Oh, thank you.
Lots
Easy to access.
Very
It's
easy to access.
beautiful.
Well, and it's, I mean, you are, when you walk around, you're marketing your product every single day.
Yeah.
And I imagine all of your customers are doing the exact same thing, right? Because it really stands out.
Yep, totally.
So so you started Sash Bag in what year?
2012.
2012. And when were you able to like really be all in full time running the company?
Almost right away. And the reason is because I did take those couple of years to make sure I was doing the right thing. Because that was the mistake I made with my first business. I just believed in it so much. I was like a believer of my own idea, you know? But other people were too. But I had kind of a dangerous combination of skills, right? Because I know how to, I do graphic design. I've been a graphic designer since the 90s. You know, I know how to make something look good. I know how to talk about it. I can package something really well and make it exciting. And so I was getting all this buy-in and all this feedback that kept fueling my idea that this was like, oh, this is going to be huge, you know? But then when it came to actually selling the product, it wasn't the right timing. It wasn't the right price point. People were like, what is this? Why is it this much money? There was so much education involved. So, and I took way too long to admit to myself that it wasn't working. So I took a couple of years after when I came up with this idea to make sure that people were actually going to part with their money, like strangers who don't love me and don't know me are going to be like, I want one of those and give me their money. Because that's what was missing with my first business, which seems like the most obvious thing, right? Like, duh. But it's crazy how many people do that, make that mistake. And I see it all the time now. And so I'm always like getting out in front of people and being like, yo, do these things first before you try to launch online or do a crowdfunding campaign or whatever. So what I did with this is I literally had the first samples or bags I sold were handmade samples. Like these were made in my backyard by me and my friend Allie and my neighbor Bree, who I didn't even know that well. But she was apparently bored enough that I was like, hey, you want to come help me sew some stuff? And that's what that's what we started with, were those handmade samples. And I took them to a trade show and I wrote $20,000 in orders off of, honestly, not very well made samples, but it was because I got people to buy in on the concept.
Right.
And they were like, oh, yeah, I can tell, that these, they'll be better in production, but yeah, I like this idea. And so once strangers were willing to give me their money in that volume, that's when I started taking it seriously.
And so did you start selling online then, or weren't you at farmers markets?
Yeah,
so
I did.
Yeah.
Yep. So I started small, doing, production of a few hundred bags a month and taking those bags out to farmers markets. So I was at the Little Italy farmers market every Saturday. We did the North Park, Pacific Beach, those three. And then I did San Diego County Fair, LA County Fair, State Fair. Just tried to get in front of as many people as possible. And I just sold one bag at a time for about 2.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And then
those were probably great locations though for your design of your bag, right? You're
right,
at the fair.
Yes.
You need a purse that's not a purse.
Well, the first time someone recommended that I go to the farmer's market, I was like, seriously? Like, people are going to the farmer's market to buy eggs and kale. They're not going to spend $150 on a purse, But I was glad that I was wrong. I was like, all right, I'll try it, And my first market, I sold over 30 bags.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe it.
Right.
I was like, what in the heck is happening? But it makes sense because, women are already walking around doing something where they have a purse on their shoulder and like, ugh.
Yeah, and they see
and they're shopping.
fix.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're like, wait, that's a better idea. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I kind of got like, once it started working, I was like, oh, I'm just going to do this. But then after a couple of years of waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and going and, setting up a big tent and all that, I was like, okay, done with that strategy.
Yeah. That reminds me of when we did our trunk shows, fit shops.
And our pop-ups.
It was a schlep, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a schlep to do it that way. And it's, what's great about it is you get that interaction with customers. And I think when you're starting something too, there's something incredibly valuable of hearing that feedback, being the person to actually hear the feedback too. But then you got going and you got yourself online. And I know, when I was working with you, it was really about now, like, what's the next level? And that's been diversifying manufacturing, really thinking about what this company is going to look like in the next 3 years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So pretty much the instant that I went online, we were a multi-million-dollar company. it was literally overnight. And it's because I spent those 2.5 years getting to know. I know a Sash, they call themselves Sash sisters. Our customers are so adorable. But I know a Sash sister a mile away. Like what other brand she wears, what her hobbies are, what questions she's going to ask, what bag she's going to buy first, what bag she's going to buy second. Like, I knew all that. So when I put together my marketing, it just worked immediately.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That is so important too, is identifying your customer, who she is, what her age is. So what is a Sash sister? What is the ideal Sash sister look like?
Yeah, so I consider a Sash sister to be a woman who is essentially in her third stage of life. And what I mean by that is like stage 1 being like, I'm a teenager and I'm going to college and I'm figuring myself out. Stage 2 being like your early adulthood, like, having young kids, maybe having like the early part of your career, like really establishing yourself and raising a family. And that third stage being the point where you want sister connections, you want to travel, you want to connect with yourself and the world and people and just, have fun and be comfortable and, not be like tied down, like a purse on your shoulder, right? Like those are the women who, when they discover the Sash, they're like, yes, like they've been carrying a purse for 20 years and they're over it, right? They're just like, that makes sense. Let's do it. Let's go travel. Let's have fun. Those are my people.
And do you have Merces? Do you have Sash brothers?
I tried that. We call them Sash.
Just curious.
They're Sash misters.
Sachets.
So we do have some Sash misters in our community, and they're more supportive of the company and their wives, daughters, girlfriends who love the Sash bag. Like they get involved because they like to buy them as gifts. But we do have some men that wear the Sash bag and, typically like maybe the brown leather, like something like that kind of Indiana Jones style.
Right.
Yeah. We did do a man bag for a little while. We called it Stash. And it did pretty well. But ultimately it came down to my desire to market it. And I'm like, I'm just not passionate about men's market Like,
Yeah.
they've got enough stuff. They've got pockets.
They have enough.
Pockets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, it just wasn't as exciting to me,
Right.
even though, the argument comes up often, like, you could make money. And I'm like, I don't care.
And
like,
you know who your customer is.
Yeah.
And you're comfortable.
And
Nice.
I love women and I love my customers. Like, I don't want to change any of that. Yeah.
That's so good.
Okay. So what's your favorite part of being a female entrepreneur?
It's got to be the female relationships. Like being, like that's how you and I met, right?
Yeah.
How did you guys meet?
Through a mutual colleague.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So, my friendships are my chosen family. So I'm in San Diego. None of my family lives here. Well, I have one brother who moved here recently out to Mount Laguna, which is about an hour away. But, I've been in San Diego all by my lonesome for 23 years. My family is not here. And so that's become my family.
Nice.
The other entrepreneurs and even my customers. Like, I had a medical procedure done. Maybe this is TMI.
No, I
recently, and one of my customers came to my house and picked me up and took me to the doctor and waited for.
I love that.
I met her because she's a Sash customer.
Right.
Like,
so
to me, that is everything.
That's how it was with our customers too. We loved our customers and formed this like Gritty Girls tribe.
Yeah.
It was fabulous.
Well, our
Still
customers,
is.
and I also feel like what's similar about Grace by Grit that reminded me when I worked with you is the women that work for you too.
Yeah.
Are your family. But you treat them like family, but also, there's the fun to be had, like the crazy days that we've all experienced, the giggles, but like you really get involved in your employees' lives. And I love that. Yeah. That's how we were too. And it was fun to watch now, even looking back on it and knowing where all these women have gone and knowing that we had this really unique time. I think all of us feel like there's nothing like that time. Like none of us have ever found that anywhere else because of the experience of working and building something together.
Totally.
So unique. Okay. So what do you wish you knew then? So before you started.
Before you left that job.
Yeah. That you do know now.
Well, I wouldn't say it's like before and now. It's kind of like a constant cycle reminder that everything works out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like everything works out.
Right.
Like it always works out. I try to remind myself all the time.
I need that reminder right now. Everything will work out.
It's so true because and sometimes it like works out accidentally or like this other way that you couldn't have even designed, but it's even better than what you would have designed if you could have designed it. But that is something that I constantly have to remind myself because even in moments where I'm like, oh, this is the worst thing that could ever happen, inevitably 6 months later, I'll look back and I'll be like, oh, that's why that happened.
Right.
Like it 100% of the time, like it always works out. So it's just like I said, it's like a cyclical thing, right?
Yeah.
Not like a then and now. It's like even though I know that, like I still will get myself caught up in moments sometimes where I'm like, oh no, this is the time it's not going to work out. Like this is the one. And then it just does.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Oh, I love that. And that's a great, piece of advice for especially people that listen to this podcast that are like starting out with their dream, business, but there's a lot of
and even with my business that failed, like that felt like game over.
Yeah, like that was your one shot and then you blew it. Yeah.
But then when I look back on it, I'm like, oh gosh, I'm so glad I had that failed business.
Right.
Because
you learned so much.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have wanted to waste those mistakes on this product because this was a superior product.
2 more questions for you. What are some unexpected challenges you faced as an entrepreneur and how have you overcome them?
An unexpected challenge for me is the demand. I knew that I was creating a good product because I liked it. And I thought that I was going to sell it to people like me. And what I didn't know is that the demand was going to be so much broader. And even though I believe in myself and I believe in my product, like honestly, it still to this day amazes me how many people love this product. And
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. But I just never felt prepared for the amount of product I need. It's a constant challenge.
I've lived this, by the way. You get product in and you sell out within the day. And then it's like okay, well now we have to wait a couple more months before the next shipment. So how are we keeping all these people happy?
We're constantly taking pre-orders constantly. So this is the biggest challenge is maintaining the customer experience when you know that they're going to have kind of a bad one, right? Because they have to wait so long for the product.
What is your product timeline from start to finish?
So our product that we're delivering right now, we started delivering, we've been delivering for about 4 weeks. So right now we're in July, so we're mid-July. People ordered this product in February and March.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So that's how long they've been waiting for this product that just came in. So months of my customer service team answers, and I'm not exaggerating, thousands of emails every single week. So
it's even better than the Kelly and the Birkin bags, right?
But you know, because it's that like, when am I getting my bag? We call them the WMBs, the where's my bag people, which we get it, right? Like, like you're excited. But so it's that maintaining the excitement and nurturing the customers and making sure they're happy, you know, and they feel like the wait was worth it. Like that is the biggest challenge. Like I've been in this position and trying to solve it for the entire 11 years I've had this company, is having enough inventory to meet the demand. I still have not gotten there. Even though I have 4 factories, we have 60,000 bags in production right now, and it's still not enough, which is a good problem to have, but it's stressful.
Right.
It's such
I
a
can
great
imagine.
problem
stressful.
to have.
Yeah.
I mean, the opposite that some people experience is now I've got all this inventory, or like you have like a bad batch, right? And then you're like, oh no, what am I going to do with all this?
We've definitely been there also.
But
how did you deal with your customers in that situation?
Well, we treat our customers the way we treat friends. This is our policy. And so that doesn't always mean like, you know, I mean, we mean it, right? Like if someone's your friend, you're going to be reasonable with them. You're not going to bend over backward all the time if it's not reasonable, but you're going to nurture them and you're going to want to make sure they're okay and you're going to be friendly to them. So we really try to treat everyone the way we would treat someone if they were a friend. Like if they're being, you know, crabby, we'll be like, hey, stop being crabby. You know?
But and you have a fantastic customer service team.
We do. Yeah. I think that you know, policy that we've established, like if this person was your friend, like what would you say to them? You know, just like talk to people, you know, like just really try to hear where people are coming from and be real with them and, you know, support them. And it's worked out really well.
It's so interesting. I mean, we could go on and on about customer service, but I did recently have a bad experience with like a very expensive bracelet that broke, and after only wearing it twice, and I went back to the brand that I will not name, and they would do nothing. They did absolutely nothing about it. They said, we're sorry. It's been a year since you purchased it, so we don't do anything. And I said, but I've only worn it twice because it's such an expensive piece, and you're going to do nothing? Not even like recommend anywhere I could go to get it fixed. They didn't even respond to that email. So I'll never buy from them again, right? And I think we all know, and I think that's such a big part of setting up businesses, is you want your customers to have the best experience, and mistakes happen, delays happen, all sorts of things happen, right? You sell inventory you don't even have sometimes, and it's how you actually deal with it that makes all the difference in the world.
Well, we do have an 84% return customer rate, which is exceptionally high.
That's amazing.
And I think that that's part of it. You know, like, if something does happen to someone's bag, I mean, we've had people that had their bag for years and they got it caught in a doorknob and it ripped in half. And we're like, okay, well, that is not a manufacturing defect, but, you know, let's hook you up with a 50% coupon so you can get yourself a new one. You know, like we always try to
what a difference it makes for those people, right? And then they're going to buy that gift to a friend when they're looking for a gift, and they're going to recommend somebody to come to you. I know that referral is huge.
Yeah.
All right. So final question. Okay. What is your grace?
I would say my grace is my ability to be with people. Like that is something that has really grown for me in this business. It used to be like the first couple times I had, so now, you know, Sash sisters all over the world have meetups and they get together and they bring their bags and if there's a customer who doesn't have one yet, they'll be like, hey, does anyone live in Austin that will let me see their bag? We'll have a get together. And we've had some of those get togethers in San Diego. And the first one we had, it was the Sash Bash that we had in 2019. We had hundreds of customers come in from all over the country, Canada, to have a big party. And I was like kind of dreading it. I'm like, oh gosh, it's gonna be like so many people. I'm gonna have to like smile the whole time and shake hands and like talk about Sash, like, you know. I had so much fun. I had such a good time, and I just it's really made me love learning about people. And what I've found is like literally anyone, no matter where they're from, like what their beliefs are, anything like that. If you really take the time to just like sit with people and just be with them and acknowledge them and get to know them, like you can fall in love with anyone. Like I've fallen in love with so many people where if I wasn't kind of forced out of my house to do that, I'd just, you know, be sitting there like binge watching Mad Men. But instead I've, you know, got all these like hundreds, kind of like thousands of new friends. And I love it. Like
That's funny because we used to say that too when we started our business. At first we thought, okay, we'll sell these, you know, we were viewing it as a product and not as a relationship as much. And we ended up making the best relationships with our customers. They feel like cousins.
They feel like distant cousins.
Some of them were cousins.
Cousins. Yeah. And I think that makes, I mean, that's when you know you love what you're doing, when you really care about the people that are buying your product, but they do feel more than just a customer at the end of the day. And I know I've had the privilege of obviously working with you and being able to witness that, but you are so authentic, Nichole, and how you share yourself. I think it allows very easily for your customers to fall in love with you and then want to support you. So
thank you.
Yeah, I really admire that.
Thanks.
I really admire that. But we are out of time. I'm getting the signals from the background behind us here saying, wrap it up, ladies. But you have been such a pleasure to hear your story. I know it's going to provide so much inspiration for others that are thinking about starting, and that perhaps it's the fact that you had that first failure that really helped you launch Sash. Maybe other people in, you know, that are like going down that road and going, maybe this isn't going to work. Know that there's something else around the corner.
Completely.
All right, Nichole. So where can people find you?
So you can go to my website, which is thesashbag.com, 3 words, The Sash Bag. You can also find us on Instagram, and it's just Sash Bag.
Great, great.
Fabulous. And if you are thinking about starting a business and that idea has just fallen on your head, go to faceyourgrace.com and get started today.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Face Your Grace podcast with Nichole MacDonald of Sash Bag. We were so glad you were here.
Thank you.